For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Manouk, along with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, set to talk about the Winnipeg Jets victorious last night in Pittsburgh. They have headed, in fact, to Nashville, Tennessee, where tonight they will face the Nashville Predators in a battle of the two Central Division rivals. One team atop the division, the other team a bottom feeder thus far this season. Gentlemen, good to see you both. It's been a mere few hours since at least a couple of us were back together, but time.
Well, I was going to say, got the comment up. Is Frederick trying to tell me something that the post-game show didn't miss me last night?
I'm sure Frederick would never say that. I would say that, but Frederick would never say that. He's a nicer guy than I am. But yes, we did miss you last night. It was a great night at Boston Pizza on Taylor Avenue. Thank you to so many of you who attended last night in person. It's great always to catch up with the members of IC Nation. And for those of you who missed out, that's okay. Stay tuned for more information coming up soon about our next live on location appearance at Boston Pizza. And of course, as well, with our friends at City Place, which we do monthly as well. So great times last night, great times moving forward, great times on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets, 17-3 in what I'll describe as a no sweat victory last night over a woeful Pittsburgh Penguins team. Ezzy, Dave and I talked about it last night on the post-game show. It was just, it's amazing, and it's sort of depressing to some extent to see the shell of this Pittsburgh Penguins team, a team with such great legacy and history and chemistry, now just a disaster of a team on the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. You used the word depressing. It's tough to see, right? Because there are already questions here, guys, in late November about Sidney Crosby's future in Pittsburgh, and we're not going to get into that.
He just signed a contract extension. He's not going anywhere. I mean,
I don't think he is either, but nonetheless, people are talking about it, right? Because Pittsburgh's obviously not going to be a playoff team this year, guys. Last in the Metro Division, and I mean, it all started. I only watched parts of the game because I was doing my daddy duty thing. That's why I couldn't join you guys yesterday at BP Taylor. I messaged Spency. Spency showed up even though I wasn't there, but I let him know that I wasn't going to be there, but I did still catch some of the game. And guys, it started with that early goal in the first period, right? Like Evgeny Malkin coughing up the puck, and Nino Niederreiter putting up the Jets up 1-0 early in the game. And you go to that second goal, the Nemesnikov goal, the 2-on-1 with Nick Ehlers, right? Like the kind of passive back check. Like it just, the Pittsburgh Penguins, it was a AAA team playing an A2 team. It was a prepared team playing an unprepared, disorganized team. That's what stood out to me. And I should mention, I didn't watch the whole game, but that's what stood out to me watching whenever I've watched the Penguins this year. Obviously, that's the second time the Jets have beat the Penguins this year, right? Mm-hmm. So it's evident that this team is in total disarray, right? Like Tristan Jarry, he's had some good games here lately, better than earlier in the season. But he can't stop a beach ball right now. And this game could have been much worse, right, guys? Like Kyle Connor, Tristan Jarry made that incredible save on Kyle Connor right after Niederreiter scored, and it was kind of a little bit of luck, right? It was almost kind of like his pad was just in the right place at the right time, right? So, good on the Jets for completely dominating the Penguins. But yeah, you wonder, how much worse can this get for the Penguins? Because you don't have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, players like this. You don't have players like that to be a non-playoff team, but that's what they're going to be this year.
Yeah, there no question about it. And now, of course, the competition for the Winnipeg Jets, even though you look at Nashville and you look at their record, and their record is terrible this year. They've been an absolute disaster again. And everyone said they won the offseason, Dave M. And now we have to head to Nashville, a team that is just been terrible. 6-11-3 so far this season, just struggles out of the gate as they're trying to incorporate all these new talented veterans, into their lineup, a team that everyone thought had high aspirations for. I'm expecting a far bigger challenge tonight than what we saw last night. I'm expecting Nashville to try and use this game tonight against the Winnipeg Jets as a way to maybe find a catalyst, find some momentum, find some energy to scratch and crawl their way back to within a sniff of a playoff spot. Not saying it's going to happen, but I will be shocked if the Nashville Predators are as listless and are as empty as the Penguins were last night, and if the Jets have as easy a victory tonight as they did last night.
Well, similar to the team that the Jets faced yesterday, Drew, the last place team in the Metro. This is the tied for last place team in the Central right now. Nashville Predators, a team that, if we recall back in the day, not that long ago, when folks were doing prognostications as to who was going to finish where in the Central, right? As we were talking about it. And it was funny because everyone's like, well, the Jets are going to maybe be ahead of Nashville. We're not sure. Well, they're not, what are they, 19 points up on Nashville right now, which is shocking at this point of the season to see that. And I kind of joked about it in the pregame report, which isn't yet published yet, but I said, well, maybe they're looking to close that gap to 17 points from 19 with a win today. But yes, I think it's going to be a stiffer test. Nashville doesn't score a ton of goals similar to Pittsburgh, but they've prevented a lot less. So that's, right. That's a good thing. And from their perspective, and they also have the best penalty killing unit in the NHL. So they're the top number one ranked PK. So it'll be number one power play against the number one PK. We saw that when the Jets, I think a couple of days ago, it was when they went in New York, the Rangers had the top PK. Now it's Nashville. So that's their strength is preventing. They don't score a lot of goals. So that'll be the
newest number of goals scored in the league, in fact, is what Nashville has so far. I think their goals for is 46, if I'm not mistaken. 46 right. Goals scored in 20 games. So just a bit over 2 a game, which is actually at the bottom of the NHL, 32nd in goals for. Hard to believe that is what is ailing a team with the offensive firepower on paper that the Nashville Predators have.
And that's what we're seeing with this Jets club, right? The Jets club, is a connected team that is not that different from the team that finished with 4th overall and 110 points last year, right? And that's something that we talked about throughout the course of the season already, is they don't have to really find their identity. They knew what their identity was a year ago, a year and a half, or 2 years ago, but now they've just put it all together. And again, as we talked about on last night's broadcast, this is a team that just continues to play the same sort of game night in, night out. Doesn't matter their opponent for the most part. And again, I don't expect anything different than against Nashville, with the exception of course, Eric Comrie being in net. That's about the only difference I'm expecting.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody expected the Nashville Predators to have this type of difficulty scoring goals. Like, you just didn't expect that. And obviously Stamkos and Marchessault haven't worked out very well. Ryan O'Reilly's got, I think, 3 goals in 20 games, right? Like, so they're struggling to put the puck in the net. There's no doubt about that. And like you guys said, I mean, it's amazing that, the special teams are both top 10 in the league, and they're still last in the division, right? So I haven't watched enough Predators to go beyond that and say what else is going on. But I think the numbers don't lie, that when you're struggling to score goals, and also they're not defending at the same level that we've been accustomed to, right? Like UC Saros, you look at his numbers, they've been fine, but the team defense in front of him, it hasn't allowed them to maybe, still persevere despite the fact that they're not scoring a lot of goals, right? So, and to Dave's point, right? Like, you bring in a lot of veterans. Brady Shea's another guy on the back end that they brought in, right? Like, for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out, and they're essentially out of a playoff spot. What did they start off the season? 0-5, 0-6. Pardon me, out of playoff contention is what I meant to say. They're obviously out of a playoff spot. It's going to be really tough. Like, they're going to have to pull off like some type of St. Louis Blues in 2018-19.
Oh, no, they're going to have to be the Nashville Predators last year. Remember, they were a terrible team early in the year last year for a big chunk of the team last year.
Yeah, but they didn't start didn't start the season off 0-6 though.
Right. They didn't start this badly, but they were well out of a playoff spot. And it was only after they traded a whole bunch of guys and really waved the white flag that they started to make a comeback. Joe from Winnipeg makes a good point. It's up there on the screen. If anybody missed this was, I think, Wednesday night, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Thursday night, actually. Nashville got a penalty at the start of the game because they started the wrong lineup.
Yeah.
You have to submit your starting lineup and then you go out for the face-off, and they had the wrong guys out there. And as a result, they got a penalty. I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to be that incompetent, but you wonder if that's rock bottom. Is that the absolute lowest of the low for the Nashville Predators? And when you're a Winnipeg Jets team, second half of a back-to-back, I know it was an easy quote-unquote win, an easy first start of the game.
Could Connor Hellebuyck start again tonight?
We talked about it on the post-game show. We don't think so. Not that I have to speak for Dave. Dave can obviously speak for himself as well. There's no reason why he couldn't. It's not like it was a taxing game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But at the same time, at this point of the year, game number 21, you're 17-3. There's no reason to run him back-to-back, especially because that game on Monday against Minnesota is a far more important game. We'll talk about that with Jesse Pierce, who covers the Minnesota Wild. We'll talk about that at the bottom of the hour. That's a far more significant game because the Minnesota Wild, no one's talking about them, but the Jets and the Wild are tied for the fewest losses in the entire NHL. Each team only has 3 losses. The only reason we're not talking more about Minnesota is they've lost 3 games in overtime as well.
Well, and the Winnipeg Jets are 17-3, and everybody else's record doesn't look that great compared to the Jets, right? But I just think it's interesting to talk about, could Hellebuyck play? Because he only faced 17 or 18 shots. I think Comrie's going to get the start tonight against Nashville. And then obviously, Drew, if the Jets didn't have a 17-3 record and didn't have 3 games in 4 nights, do you really want to play Hellebuyck 3 times in 4 days? No, obviously, Hellebuyck would do it because we know he likes to play. But I just think it's something to consider considering the shot volume from last night. I think, something that merits discussion is Mark Scheifele and what's going on with him. I'm sure you guys talked about it last night on the post-game show, but obviously, most people weren't expecting to see Gabe Vilardi taking all of those face-offs. And maybe people shouldn't be as surprised, Dave, because I believe he missed practice on Wednesday, Scheifele.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could have been related to this, right? I think there's a strong chance there's a correlation there.
Well, if you saw Mike McIntyre's article in today's Winnipeg Free Press, which of course is available, Dave, on illegalcurve.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw, he asked, of course, as the sort of on-site journalist there for the Free, he asked Scott Arniel about, Mark Scheifele was not taking those draws, and Arniel, with a wink and a nudge, sort of admitted that Scheifele's working through something. Obviously, it didn't prevent him from playing, but it resulted in Gabe Vilardi taking the face-offs for the top line in last night's game. So that Scheifele's got something, and I'm not going to speculate on what that thing is, but clearly the organization and Scott Arniel and the coaching staff and Scheifele as well decided that it's better for Vilardi to get into that face-off circle right now. I thought Scheifele, I didn't think it hampered Scheifele's game last night. I thought he was noticeable for the right reasons, but at the same time, it was just such a poor opponent that you really can't glean a lot from the Winnipeg Jets last night, aside from the fact that they took care of business, Dave.
Yeah, no, for sure. And as I just had the comment up from Snackatoba, but the fact is that Gabe Vilardi was very good on faceoffs, and he handled it more than adequately. So that's a good thing. And yeah, it's clearly a cause for concern that Mark Scheifele has something because he's a center. He's not a winger, and so if he's not taking faceoffs, then yeah, there's definitely
might be for Team Canada, Dave.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe he's just getting ready for February, right? Has he? But look, right now it's clear that the Jets are content to let him just kind of rest when he needs to. And, if they want to play this sort of hybrid game with him as a center, but not on faceoffs, it's still working for them. And so clearly they don't feel that they need to do anything else and that this is sufficient. So that's what they're going to do. And you're right. It's definitely something that's notable. And as we didn't really get into it too much yesterday, but yeah, it's definitely because I don't think we saw the comments from Scott Arniel with respect to that, but yeah, it's definitely something that is, you take note of, because he's and everybody's dealing with something. Even though we're only a quarter of the way through the season, guys still have, issues. Everybody's got something that they're dealing with really at this point of the year. But the fact of the matter, especially when the schedule tightens up and when you have these types of tournaments that take away a chunk of the season, it does mean that things get a little more condensed. And so, I just think that you've got but like I said, the Jets have the latitude or the luxury, of being a 17-3 team right now. And they don't have to have a significant concern. And probably a side benefit of this, guys, is that, we've heard that Gabe Vilardi likes playing the middle. And for so long, if you remember, what was one of our conversations during the preseason was, well, maybe Gabe Vilardi becomes your second line center. But they still obviously like him as a winger, especially with the way that Scheifele, Connor, and Vilardi line has worked. But I'm just saying that maybe this is giving them a little bit of an opening, because it's funny, the Jets faceoffs weren't particularly good yesterday. I think they were around 41%. I don't know where it finished, but they were at 40 at one point, 59-41. So, I mean, again, maybe Vilardi is demonstrating that he can play up the middle a little bit. And obviously, I know there's more to playing center than winning faceoffs.
And he is a natural center. We should mention that, right?
Played that in junior. Hasn't transitioned to the pros at that. And
he did play significant center with the LA Kings, but because of Quinton Byfield and the fact that they kind of wanted Vilardi to be that second line center behind Kopitar, he played on the wing. And I think we all agree for now, like Dave said, if Scheifele's clearly dealing with something, it hasn't been officially mentioned by Scott Arniel. I don't know if he will, but it doesn't matter. The point is that Velarde's a natural center. He can take faceoffs, and not only can he take them, he can win them. And it's something to consider. And obviously, guys, if the Jets want him to be their second line center, it's not going to be because of faceoffs. It's going to be because he's a better option than Vlad Nemesnikov. But that's a conversation for another day and time, because I don't think anything is happening there. Nemesnikov, Perfetti, and Ehlers have been really solid as the Jets' second or whatever third line, 2A, 2B, whatever we're calling them right now. But it's just something to notice, right? And obviously it didn't affect the Jets because they completely dominated the Penguins with Scheifele on the wing, right? So it's just something interesting to see how much we're going to see of that on this road trip.
Well, I mean, that's the question entering tonight's game. And of course, there is no morning skate, so we won't find out about, the health status of any Jets players or any lineup changes until probably closer to 4:00 this afternoon. I wouldn't expect anything, assuming that everybody came out of the game last night unscathed from the Winnipeg Jets perspective, or no more banged up than they were entering the game. There's no reason to expect that the Winnipeg Jets are going to have any lineup changes. They haven't had any lineup changes since Logan Stanley left the lineup. I think that was the last time they made a change, bringing Hayden
But
Fleury
Monday,
back.
Drew, is when, we have to talk about, is that the game where Heinola plays?
Well, that's, of course, the question mark is, does he come in on Monday against the Minnesota Wild? The Moose play this afternoon in downtown Winnipeg. Dave M will have it covered, of course, for Illegal Curve. So he's going to get big minutes again. And then do they take him straight from, the game tonight, again, this afternoon against the Chicago Wolves, and drop him into the lineup against the Minnesota Wild without really there being any practice time, without there being any sort of skating time to get him acclimatized with the new group? You look at the schedule moving forward. So obviously it's the back-to-back tonight and last night. Monday in Minnesota. You go out west to play LA on Wednesday. You got Vegas on Friday. You got Dallas on Sunday. So if you're looking for a practice to get him into the groove with his teammates, there really isn't one. There's going to be maybe a little bit of a skate, but given the fact the Jets are in the midst of 10 games in 17 days, which is a wild schedule, that is unfair to the players, I would argue, but that's a separate issue for another day and time. There isn't a clear opportunity where you can ease them in. So, Dave, let me ask you, do you think he just jumps right into the lineup on Monday against the Minnesota Wild, or do you think that they try and maybe get him a little bit of a skate, and then maybe you're looking more at a Wednesday or a Friday target?
It's a good question. And look, Ville Heinola played in all situations on Thursday morning. Not the easiest game for his first game in 7 months to play a school day game, 5,000 kids yelling at you. But the truth is that,
and 5,000 kids and one Dave.
Well, I don't yell, but yes, that's fair. He had to deal with me after the game when I doing interviews. But look, it is an interesting one, because people were asking me, well, how did he look? How did he look? I'm like, well, he looked like a guy who hadn't skated in 7 months, and he played penalty kill as he was the first power play QB for the Moose. He played obviously 5-on-5. It seemed like he was on the ice for every second shift, at least in the first period. He played probably 25 minutes in the game. He got, as Mark Morrison said afterwards, he got what he needed out of it. Ville Heinola himself, wants to play a little bit better. He wants to, has higher expectations for himself. And so, like I said, I thought he looked fine, for his first game back in 7 months. Is he necessarily up to speed quite yet? He's getting there. I'd say that, his ankle looked good. He was able to make turns and pivot the way he needed to. Again, like I said, I just think it's just timing. And the AHL is just a different game, right? It's just a slower game than the NHL. So sometimes guys can look a little bit choppy at the AHL level, and they're fine once they get up to the NHL level. My inclination, especially with kind of the importance of what this game is going to look like between these two really significant rivals, is that you maybe give Heinola. I know Scott Arniel said he's the number one fan and he wants to get him going, but I would think, again, provided that they're happy with tonight's result in Nashville, that they maybe just give him, like, I'm trying to think. So Monday, they'll fly out on Tuesday, right? No, I guess they may practice on Tuesday. I don't know. We don't know their schedule yet in LA. Right. So he may get a practice in Tuesday. And then if that's the plan, then maybe you skate him. Maybe you play him Wednesday in LA. That would be my inclination to kind of give him the best. Okay, you've played 2 games. We'll give you a skate with the team to kind of get reacclimatized with everyone here, get used to the passing and the crispness and the speed at the NHL level. And then we'll throw you into a game in LA.
I sort of tend to agree with you. I think that asking him to jump right into that game on Monday, the 3rd and 4 nights, he's been playing, he'll play this afternoon. It just strikes me as a lot to ask of him early on in him trying to acclimatize to being a full-time NHLer, because let's be honest, at this point, there's no other options. The Jets are expecting him to be the back end option, on the left side of that third pairing right now. Hayden Fleury has done a very admirable job coming in. Logan Stanley obviously banged up, but I don't expect this, to be a rotation. I expect the Jets want Ville Heinola to win and keep and solidify that position moving forward on that third pair.
Well, you just said it though, Drew. You don't expect it to be a rotation, but it depends on how Ville Heinola plays. And I agree with you. I expect Heinola to play well. But like Dave said, he hasn't played a lot of games in the last couple of years, obviously, right? He missed a lot of time last year and he's missed a lot of time this year. So there is that unknown factor. I'm not saying that, like, Heinola is a pro athlete. He's in good shape. And, he's looked good, at least from what I've seen early on this season with the Moose, right? But yes, the expectation is this is time for Ville Heinola at 23 years old to establish himself as an NHL defenseman. He was supposed to do it last year, right? So I think the Jets are obviously going to give him every opportunity to play. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see, is it going to be that game on Monday against the Wild? Is it going to be Wednesday? I think that's LA, right? If I'm not mistaken. Or is it going to be later in the road trip against Vegas or Dallas, based on the fact that, he's still getting up to speed in terms of gameplay? He's obviously been practicing, but practicing
there's no
is one
obvious
thing.
Option. Sorry, Ezzy, but there's no obvious game to get him into. Is a little bit of a funny sort of aspect of this as well. There's not one softer opponent to get him into. I mean, the softer opponents were last night and then to some extent tonight. But you're going, after the Nashville game, Minnesota, great hockey team. We've talked about them. LA playing at a better level than I think most anyone would have expected, especially after they lost Drew Doughty. They're 10-7-3. They've been holding water. They've been maintaining sort of a steady start to the season. Vegas, that's never an easy game. We know that. 12-6-2 the Golden Knights are. And then you wrap up this road trip against the Dallas Stars, another team that is, talked about as one of the class teams in the Western Conference. So there's not an easy game to ease him into the lineup. So it's a matter of just, when do you feel he's got enough, I'm going to call them reps, with his teammates to get him in there. He's never played with Colin Miller. I mean, there's no familiarity between him and Colin Miller, given that Miller, of course, came over at the trade deadline last year. Heinola was at the AHL level at that point. I don't recall them spending any time together this, during training camp.
They did.
They
actually did a little bit, but it
would have been like a day or two at most, probably, until he went out with the injury again.
Yeah, I mean, because his training camp started on the 18th of September, and Heinola's infection was, we found out about it on the 20th. So it was 2 days. But I think it was actually part of the joke, because I think that Miller was with Heinola. It was Miller and Heinola for the first couple of days, Drew. And then no, because then he went down, and then Miller was paired with someone else, and then that person went down. So it was kind of a joke that Miller was a little bit cursed in terms of yeah. But anyways, no, I mean, and just to answer one of the questions, I responded, but there's no need for waivers until Stanley's ready to come off IR. And then when he is, that'll put them at 24, and they'll have to make a decision with respect to
Dylan Coghlan.
Dylan Coghlan being put on waivers and being sent to the Moose, but that's, the expectation. And look, like I said, I think you could, to me, the game against LA makes the most sense. And I put it in the chat. Everyone can can let us know what they think, be part of it. This is all about being part of the discussion. But I my inclination would be that you give him that LA game. I'm not saying it's the softest probably is the softest of the four left after tonight. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think that's probably his, you give him, like I said, you give him a chance to kind of get back with the group, have some skating time. If they plan that, right, boys, we don't know what the plan is for the week, because we don't find that out till Sunday. Yeah. But we'll see what the Jets do. But to me, that would be my thought process is that they're going to give him the game on Wednesday against LA.
And I like that comment from Mark Sports Video. Just put him in. You got to make mistakes to get better. But the thing that, to me, guys, and I'm sure that you're thinking the same thing, and a lot of people in the chat are talking about this. Like, the Jets are 17-3 right now, and you throw in Ville Heinola, like, to think of the possibility of they could be quicker, right? Because no disrespect to Hayden Fleury, he's a big defenseman. He can skate. I mean, he's not slow, but Ville Heinola, we'd all agree, can move the puck quicker up the ice than Hayden Fleury. And so that just further adds to the speed element of this game. And we saw it, right, Dave, on the first goal with Mason Appleton putting pressure on, I forget which Penguins defenseman it was. Was it Marcus Peterson? I forget which defenseman it was, but Mason Appleton was putting a lot of pressure, right? And that just further adds to the Jets' speed game, having Heinola in the lineup. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see him play. And, it's been a long time coming, guys, right? From when he was drafted in the first round in 2019. We've only seen, bits and pieces. He's only been given a game here, 2 games here, 3 games there. And I think this is his opportunity, to establish himself. And I think he will.
Yeah, the runway should be longer for Ville Heinola in the Jets lineup starting really this coming week. As for the specific game, time will tell, but it's something to certainly keep an eye on as the Winnipeg Jets look to keep their winning ways going tonight in Nashville and then next week, and they continue the road trip. Post-game show tonight right around 8:40, 8:45 after the Jets and the Predators. When we come back this morning, our good friend Jamie Thomas is going to join us for more Winnipeg Jets discussions. Don't go anywhere. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now. Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and I'm your host, Drew Mindell. To the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Jamie Thomas scheduled to join us momentarily. We'll give him some gears for being late. If I know Jamie, he's definitely doing some fantasy football research at this point in time. I want to make mention our friends at Boston Pizza. They have a great promotion going on this holiday season. For every purchase of a $50 Boston Pizza gift card, get $10, get an additional $10 gift card at no extra cost. So buy a $50 gift card, get a $10 gift card to our friends at Boston Pizza. And then if you're, buying for a business or you're spending some big money on gift cards, that continues to increase as you get into the higher total spent. So for more information, check out your local Boston Pizza. They'll hook you up with all the details, and maybe you can do that for this upcoming holiday season.
I was there a few days ago. I wasn't there last night on Taylor, but now that I'm in St. James, I went to the Boston Pizza on Portage and had a nice little pierogi pizza. The kids had a nice little meal. So it's definitely hockey Boston Pizza season.
Soon enough, that place will be known as the house that Ginsburg built, given how often you tend to frequent the local.
I'm always amazed at how whichever Boston Pizza location you go to in the city, they're all packed all the time. They're all
Good business
busy
model.
all the time. It doesn't matter if it's the afternoon or at night, always busy.
I'm just impressed you've managed to clone yourself and appear at two different Boston Pizzas at the same time. That's really the impressive part from my perspective. But nonetheless, we digress on that front. A little bit of news out of Nashville. The Predators have recalled Fedor Svechkov, who was their first-round pick back in 2021. So it seems like he might make his NHL debut tonight for the Predators as they're looking to jumpstart that team, jumpstart that offense. So a little bit of news. I'm not sure, Dave, you would have probably seen him a bunch with Milwaukee, as he was a good player for the Admirals for the last number of years. But Svechkov gets set to join the Predators lineup, it appears, at least for tonight's game against the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, they wouldn't have hit the ice for, well, I guess it's a 6:00 start. So
just about now is when they would be hitting the ice if they do a morning skate. The Jets, of course, not doing a morning skate today, given the second half of a back-to-back.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, he's had some, let's put it this way. He's had some success. He's 8 points in 7 games for Milwaukee this season. But yeah, I mean, he's a good player, 39 last year. And just like I said, it's one of those, we know how good that Milwaukee Admirals team has been for years, right, Ezzy? And we saw what Nashville was able to gain from having a very good system in the AHL and a good team. They called up those guys. And remember, was it 2 years ago when they went on that big run, Drew, right till the end? I think, or was it last year? No, I think it was it 2 years ago when Nashville went on the big run, or last year?
What do you mean by the big run?
Remember? Oh, it was last year. It was when they recalled, they traded away all their guys, and then it was last year. But the point is that, they get, and then and then it was funny. It was good for their AHL club, because what did they do? They sent all those guys down when they didn't make it, and those guys were all battle tested and ready to go. So, Milwaukee's always been a good team, and they always send those guys up ready to go and ready to make an impact. But again, just quickly looking at Nashville, I mean, it's just, I cannot comprehend. I mean, think about the fact that Barry Trotz had to go on Nashville radio 2-3 weeks ago and kind of publicly say what I'm sure he had already privately been saying for quite some time, which was like, WTF. Sorry, Drew doesn't want me to swear on the show, but I think it's one of those things that he's like, we did this. And look, guys, we've seen this before. We've seen this a million times. Guys, teams make splashes in free agency, and everybody's like, the declarations, they've won the offseason. It's like, well, okay, but they actually have to play the games, right, Ezzy? And so it's always just funny to me when that happens. And everybody's like, well, Nashville this, Nashville that. Well, I mean, you're seeing what happens when, and look, to the point that Drew made to the start of the show, I think it was Drew, this team could gel and they could go on a bit of a run. They're not going to catch the Jets, but they could go on a bit of a run and get themselves into a playoff spot. It's going to be difficult, but I'm not saying it's impossible. But I'm just suggesting that it just goes to show you that it does take a while for these guys to build the chemistry and play like a team. And you can't just put all these really good players together and then it's instant chemistry and instantly they're one of the best teams in the division in the league.
Dave, you nailed it. The Predators won free agency on paper, but it meant absolutely nothing in the standings. See, 0-6 start for the Predators. And, Drew mentioned Fedor Svechkov. Like, you wonder if the Predators weren't having this much trouble scoring goals, would a 21-year-old first rounder be in the lineup, or would he just stay in the AHL marinating with the Milwaukee Admirals, right? Because that the Admirals would love to keep him. Like you said, he's almost a point per game for them. He's got a lot of talent.
They're looking for anything that can get them going. I mean, they just finished a 5-game road trip. Nashville did, 1, 2, and 2 is where they went on that 5-game road trip, which is not, what they need right now. It's not where they need to be. They need to go on a significant run. And here's what actually Andrew Brunette, current Nashville Predators head coach, had to say about tonight's game. Quote, "I think you're always looking for defining moments in the season to have the best team in the NHL, that being the Winnipeg Jets, of course, come in and play here at home. And obviously we're not where we want to be. So to get where we want to be, it could be a big moment to have a big game." Lots of coulda, woulda, shoulda there, of course, but he's looking for anything to try and jumpstart this team. And I do think that, the Predators they have so many veterans that they still have a lot of pride. They're right now a wounded beast. And so when is a wounded beast at their most dangerous? When they are wounded, when they have nothing left to lose. So I do think the Jets have to be cautious with how they approach tonight's game. It's not going to be like last night in Pittsburgh. The Jets are not
No.
going. I'd be shocked if the Predators serve up a goal to the Winnipeg Jets a minute 22 into the game like the Penguins did for the Jets last night. I'm expecting a much more difficult contest tonight just because in division Saturday night, you're looking to get something going with this team before it's, it might already be too late, but before it's really too late. So that's why I think the Jets need to be, are going to have a stiffer test tonight against Nashville than they did last night against Pittsburgh.
There's no question it's going to be a stiffer test tonight. And not only is it a divisional opponent, I mean, these two teams have a history, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't too long ago it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Look at even last year, right? The Predators played the Jets really hard. We talked about it. I think Jamie's joining us now, but it's going to be a much stiffer test. The Predators didn't play last night as opposed to the Jets. And like you said, Drew, they still think they can turn this around. It's way too early in the season just to give up and say, well, maybe we'll make the playoffs next year.
I love you, Jamie Thomas, but I have a question for you. If you set your fantasy football lineup at 12:11 p.m. rather than before 12 noon, what happens to your team?
Oh, we can't hear.
Can't hear. I mean, now we can't even hear you. So we'll let you figure out those technological.
This would never happen on the Ground Control podcast.
No, that's because Sarah's there. She takes care of everything.
And Tyler and the crew and Hunter and the group.
Yeah. He's got a whole crew of people to make sure that the alarm goes off properly and everything else as he's sitting there trying to figure out the audio issues that he's currently experiencing. You know what, Jamie? I'm going to remove you from the screen for a second, and when you give us the thumbs up, you tell us you'll be back in and ready to go. So there he goes. We'll see him backstage, and whenever Jamie's ready to go, he'll wave or do some sort of machinations to that effect. So we'll have him join us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
The good news is he's here. That's all we care about.
That's right.
We'll get the audio going in a second. He's here.
Let everybody just stop talking.
We'll get that going. I'm still here. I think there we go. Are we having technical difficulties all over the place this morning?
I don't know what's going on. Seems like the whole situation is coming to a boil. There's a lot of Illegal Curve broadcasts, Drew. So maybe there's some gremlins in the system. And speaking of a lot of broadcasts, folks, make sure you smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I mean, those are very important things. And I was talking to someone at BP. It's all about that algorithm. We don't know what that means, but it's all about the algorithm. Make sure you are helping the algorithm out. And the Illegal Curve one is helped out. Not just on our YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on Blue Sky. Make sure you're following us on Threads, Instagram. Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out how to get as many followers as Dave on Blue Sky. He's lapping us, Drew.
Well, speaking about Instagram and Facebook, we're waiting for Jamie to figure out.
Drew.
Yeah, sorry. Right now, if you head over to our Instagram and our Facebook page, our latest giveaway with our friends at Play Now Manitoba has gone live. Enter to win 4 tickets for the Saturday night game on December the 14th, the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. All you have to do is head to our Facebook page, head to our Instagram page, answer the question, check out the post, and you will have an opportunity to get entered into a draw to win 4 primo seats for the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens game on Saturday, December the 14th. So get over there right now, our Instagram, our Facebook page. That draw is it's now open. It's going to continue through the next few days. We're going to draw a winner middle of next week. And somebody, and it could be you, is going to go to the Jets and the Habs game on Saturday night, December the 14th, courtesy of Illegal Curve and our friends at Play Now.
Ooh, so Saturday night against the Habs? I love it.
How great is that? An original 6 matchup on a Saturday night. Downtown Winnipeg is going to be a buzz with excitement for that game, and we're thrilled that in conjunction with our friends at Play Now, we're going to be able to send you to that game. So that's an exciting giveaway
here. Should be some goals that night, boys, because the Montreal Canadiens having a little trouble keeping the puck out of their net these days.
Yeah, that's a team that has no structure and whatsoever. It just looks like they're playing pond hockey on a regular basis. But we'll deal with that in about 3 weeks' time is when that game will be on a Saturday night. Instead, tonight we have the Jets and the Predators. As we've talked about, this Nashville Predators team, I mean, we talked about it. I don't think they're as bad as their record indicates. I know that you are what your record says you are. I get that. But you look at the talent that's on this roster, and I know it's a veteran team, and it's aging, rapidly, possibly in dog years, given the start to their season. But I still don't think that they are as poor as their record indicates. I know that they can't score goals, but it's hard to believe that that's going to continue all season long when you have some of the name brand talent that you have there, Ezzy, with guys who are certainly veteran guys like Marchessault and Stamkos, and you knew those contracts weren't necessarily going to age wonderfully in the next few years, but I'm shocked that it started this poorly so early, not to mention guys like Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly and other guys who have put the puck in the net throughout their careers.
Right, and we talked about the special teams have been fine. PK's been excellent. Power play, I think, is 9th in the league, right? They can't score goals at 5-on-5. That's their issue, at least from what I've seen based on the numbers. I haven't watched a ton of Predators hockey this year, but, like you mentioned, with Philip Forsberg and Jonathan Marchessault and Stamkos and Luke Evangelista is a good player. He's having a rough start to the season. Roman Josi, Ryan O'Reilly, Gustav Nyquist. There's a reason why many people pick them, not just to make the playoffs, but to finish first in the Central Division. I was even contemplating at the beginning of the year, but like we said, there's a reason you play the games, and there's a reason why hockey is a team sport, because you can't just take a collection of very skilled players and specifically when you add in Stamkos and Marchessault and just expect the transition to be seamless. But I'm with you. I wouldn't completely write the Preds off yet.
I think they have some talent still. A man we know has some talent.
No.
Hopefully IT talent. We can hear you. Say hello.
It's like ever since I did the update that my AirPods don't work. It's unreal. So I feel like a child, and still just like a massive idiot whenever I did this.
No, don't feel like an idiot, Jamie, because the first show of the season back in September, my microphone cord wasn't working, and I had to go to Long and McQuaid midway through the show to get a cord for my Shure mic, and I ended up not getting one and missed half of the show. So
and then did the other half in his car from his phone
in the parking lot.
But at least you didn't quit. That's the whole thing. You kept going.
Right.
You got to
and you didn't quit either. That's what we like to see.
Yeah, I tried to go off my phone too, and it didn't work either. So whatever. Now we know. We got it all going here.
Well, as long as you now have to go out and buy some new AirPods. That's
Drew insult me again. Talk about the fantasy football line. Let's start this over again. We can get right back to the beginning. Yes, if I didn't get my lineup in time, I couldn't fix it. However, I am the commissioner, and I can switch things around. So you should always screenshot.
Absolute power.
That's right. So, but I don't think you can do that on Sleeper. Sleeper cuts you off from any type of shenanigans. However, CBS Sportsline, you can do some pretty crazy things with your commissioner powers. Just if anybody's out there that has a sneaky commissioner, remember that.
It sounds like you've maybe had some experience in that avenue there. What are you telling us, Jamie, that we don't already know?
I had to do a coup one time because one guy in my fantasy baseball league was pulling stuff over. And I have a co-commissioner in one of my fantasy hockey leagues, and his contracts look very suspicious sometimes. I'm not going to name names.
Wow.
I'm not going to name names.
Scandals afoot here on the
There's
Saturday
all kinds
morning.
Of scandals in fantasy sports. It's just, and Dave's oh my God, fantasy sports. Stop talking about this stuff.
Well, let's talk about the real sports instead of the fantasy sports.
Yeah.
The Jets' performance continues to roll along. 17-3 last night's victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. We talked about this on the post-game show. We talked about this to start in the morning. I'm expecting a far bigger challenge tonight in Nashville than what Pittsburgh put up last night. In fact, I mean, the Penguins' effort, from a minute 22 in was sort of embarrassing. If for that, I don't expect the same from the Nashville Predators tonight. I think the Jets probably themselves would expect a harder battle than they received last night.
How is Kyle Dubas ever going to win Executive of the Year? That's what we have to ask ourselves.
Maybe in his fantasy football league, maybe he's a great executive there.
He has inherited some kind of mess there. But anyways, I clearly what we're going to see is probably about 90 more hits tonight than we saw last night in Pittsburgh. The Jets were, to their credit, were very physical to start, and I think they got, clearly with the third line that set the tone. That's just, a lot of this is rinse and repeat right now, is it not for them? It's just it's one line doing something, other guys chipping in, but the third line really set the tone last night. So it's going to have to be the third line again setting the tone in Nashville, because the Predators, as they always do whenever the Jets are in town, we'll take it to them in the first period. And understanding that the Jets played last night, they've jumped the time zone as this crazy dog's breakfast of a road trip begins for the Jets. I don't know about you guys, but I'm still stunned that Nashville is where they are right now. I did not see that in a million years. I thought the Central was just going to roll over the entire National Hockey League this year, and I've been thoroughly disappointed by a bunch of teams this year. So, but to the game tonight, they'll be very physical to start, and the Jets are going to have to be ready for that right away.
Jamie, I have to ask you about Gabe Vilardi, because not only did he score a nice little power play goal yesterday on a nice little feed from Kyle Connor, he's playing center, which is something he did in junior. He did a little bit with the LA Kings, and we're not going to speculate. Obviously, there's a reason why he's taking the faceoffs and Mark Scheifele's playing on the wing. It's something that we'll watch as the road trip continues starting tonight in Nashville. But what's impressed you most, in addition to the fact that, he's showing his versatility now, but like on the power play, it just seems like he's one of the most dangerous guys in the league. And I'm not being, hyperbolic when I say that, right? Like if he's in the bumper spot, he's behind the net. You have to know where opposing teams have to know where Gabe Vilardi is at all times on the ice.
Well, I think we've got a clear indication now why the Jets power play was 18.8% last year, because half of the year was spent without Gabe Vilardi in the lineup. So, and now, we are quick to, Davis Payne has done a wonderful job making sure there's lots of movement, but I think we've seen what the issue was is you have full-time Gabe Vilardi on the power play. And to your point, all of them are moving all the time. That's the one thing that's just not stagnant. We haven't seen the dusting off of the puck at all, as much as we have seen in years past. But Vilardi is exactly what they were hoping for, the crown jewel of the trade with the Los Angeles Kings, sending Pierre-Luc Dubois there. He's so good. He's so good and tight. It just seems like there's another level to this guy all the time. And I think to hit not so much his credit, to his defense, he hasn't been healthy enough for any of us to say he's been value of that pick or the trade. Now we're seeing when he's healthy what this is all about. So he has fit in great. I remember talking to him earlier this year just about, being around the guys all the time is a big help. When you get hurt 2-3 games, the third game of the year, and you're trying to establish yourself in a new system and with new teammates and new coaching staff, it's pretty hard to do when you're sitting up in the press box. So now that he's been healthy and been able to work consistently with Scheifele and Kyle Connor on the first line, and certainly the power play, now we're starting to see what exactly it was the Los Angeles Kings draft in the first round, why they were so excited to get him in there. And injuries aside, he is proving his value so much. And I just think the thing that has impressed me the most is just like, there just seems like there's another place he can go still. Like he hasn't peaked at all. And that must be terrifying for other teams, and so exciting for the coaching staff and management for the Jets right now.
Well, Jamie, it's interesting because I think it's something we tend to forget, because when guys are injured, they're not with the teams on the road, generally speaking. And so, you think, it's not a big deal. But I know Gabe Vilardi, when he was asked about it earlier in the season, talked about the idea like, I wasn't with them a lot. So I didn't really I missed a lot of games. I missed that bonding time, from game 3 on. He missed that opportunity to really, integrate with this group. And sure enough, he did it eventually. But you're seeing it. And the reason why I'm springboarding from that, I want to talk about Ville Heinola. Yeah. Because when I was talking to him after he at practice for the Moose, before he played on Thursday, one of the things I asked him about was the fact that, you haven't played with, you had the benefit of playing with this team, with the Jets, of course, and being around them. He goes, yeah, but it was hard when they're on the road and, the Moose are doing their thing. I'm kind of in that limbo state. Yeah. And so, to that point now, Ville Heinola is, about to finish his second game of conditioning. We know from Scott Arniel, he's going to join the team tomorrow in Minnesota. So from your perspective, we were talking about it earlier in the show. Do you think this is a opportunity? And we know Scott Arniel said it in the media availability from the Matt Frost Media Center. I'm the biggest Heinola fan. I'm paraphrasing. But do you think this is do you think that they're likely to put him in on Monday? Or do you think that they give him a little bit more time with the team to get acclimatized and then maybe a Wednesday opportunity? And speaking of that opportunity, with Logan Stanley still not on the ice, is there a pretty good chance for Ville Heinola to kind of take this job that's been his kind of earmark for him for some time now?
Yeah, so with Philly, and I think a lot of us and anybody else doesn't call it their team and not around the Moose all the time like you are, Dave. A lot of people are just sitting there going, "Oh, poor Billy." That's all it is right now. "Oh, poor Billy, just can't catch a break." Now we're just completely forgetting about the player at this point because you're just the human side of us is just going, "Oh man, I just wish he could get in the lineup." I don't know if Minnesota's the right team to throw him in against.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we've seen the Jets go into St. Paul many times, and I don't even know how to describe it. Like that's this game that they're having
It's
today.
like the Royal Rumble, Jamie.
Exactly. It's like you may as well bring in the theme music. You may as well start guys coming down like come zipping on the ice and playing all that stuff because that is exactly what it is whenever the Jets go to St. Paul. Like look at the preseason. Like they don't even let up in the preseason. That was insane. So I don't know if that is the right game. I mean, if you want to see if you're ready, I mean that's the great way to do it. But I think it's better that they wait a little bit and wait for the next game. Is against Los Angeles. So I mean it's about time. Like we've been waiting to see since the beginning and since the preseason, that game against Ottawa last year. You're like, okay, Billy's made this team. Now it's time. It's his time. He's earned this opportunity, and you felt good about it again. Now it's just like, here we go again. Let's just stay healthy. Give yourself the opportunity, some success amount of time. Like Logan Stanley was a great run there. I think it was 8 games in a row where he played. He hasn't had that opportunity, and now there's Billy. So hopefully this is that springboard for him to get consecutive games in a row to get in some kind of rhythm. And we can see what those that are tight to the team, what we know what Ville Heinola is a great player and has earned this opportunity to be an NHL player. So I just can't wait to see. I'm glad he's here. I can tell every year that he's getting mentally stronger. He just seems to be maturing all the time. Now we just want to see his game on the ice, period.
Jamie Thomas, our guest this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Jamie, of course, the host of the Ground Control podcast, Jets team reporter. Last night after the victory against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the headlines were about Kyle Connor, the Gordie Howe hat trick, the great punch he leveled against Sidney Crosby, a sentence I did not expect to say. And then post-game.
He has 2 brothers to remember, 2 brothers. We've all punched our brothers.
I can't relate.
One, so.
Yeah. It's been a while probably since he punched his brothers, though. But that was a good shot he got in on.
Jamie, Drew's an only child. He doesn't understand about punching brothers.
Okay. I got nothing. You don't know, man.
I got no concept. But he said more importantly than anything last night in the locker room after the game, quote, "We're not taking shit from anybody."
Yeah.
I mean, the swagger and is more so than the Jets deserve to have a swagger given they're 17-3, but Kyle Connor himself seems to have more of a leadership swagger than we've ever seen before. Is that just a function of him just sort of taking that next step in his career to grab a leadership role and grab, be on the leadership mantle of this Winnipeg Jets team?
I think it's all part of that leadership group where, at the end of the last year where Josh Morris said we got to be 5-10% better. Right. And I think, when I heard that's just words at that point for me. And you knew they were upset. I mean, the way they got knocked out in the last 2 playoffs, you could see that. But you're just like, okay, it could be just chat at the end of the year. You're frustrated. But now it's just like it seemed like everyone took that seriously. And that's 100% on the leadership group. Scott Arniel and the coaching staff deserve some credit. But the leadership group has taken another step this year where it's just like, okay, that can't happen again. Regular season being great is all that stuff. Kyle Connor, with this 4 Nations face-off thing, I know there's that extra thing of representing your country again and a high level kind of plays a role in it. But I think everybody's understanding it. And as well as they're playing right now, they know the real test is coming up in April. And they're happy with where they are, and they should be because they've been dominant and it's been fun to watch. And it's another level that we haven't seen from this group. And I don't want to see this team as good as the 2017-18 team. But remember when they go they would step on the ice and you'd be like, I don't know if this team can lose. Right. That's where this team feels like right now, against whatever opponent, and at this moment they can win in so many different ways. But with Kyle Connor, it's the leadership group. Period. It has taken things to another level. When the Jets have needed their best players, they've been their best players, and you can maybe say 1 game where they weren't, and that says a lot. We're 20 games in, so Kyle Connor learned a lesson. And the fact that he said what he said after the fight with Sidney Crosby, they're just not going to put up with anything. That's great because now that sets us up for tonight with Nashville and Minnesota, because someone's going to be throwing shit at them in these next couple of games. And now we're going to really see where this all lies. But it's another step in maturity and leadership shown by Kyle Connor and pretty much anybody else wearing a letter on the Jets right now.
Jamie, I wanted to ask you about the goaltending. I think most people expect Eric Comrie to play tonight, even though Hellebuck only faced, 17 or 18 shots last night. Hellebuck started. Yeah, exactly. Allegedly. I don't know how many of those were high danger, probably only a couple.
Right.
But I'm fascinated to see how he's used for the month of December and January. You mentioned the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah.
I mean, 16 of 20 games, if you just project that out, he's on pace for what would be 64 games, kind of exactly where, he's been over the last, I don't know, however many years, 60 plus games for the Jets. But, specifically on this road trip, which we know there's 6 games in 11 days or 12 days, I don't know, is it out of the realm of possibility that Comrie gets another start on this road trip? And also kind of looking at it more of a macro level, just seeing if we might see more of Comrie before the Four Nations face-off, because we know obviously Hellebuck's not going to get that time off, and he's going to be, everyone expects him to be the starter, which means he's going to play the majority of the games. Like how are you kind of viewing the goaltending split, over the next, month or two?
I'm sure you guys would talk to people in the off season with your show, and just the consistent theme of the people that aren't in this market is Connor Hellebuck plays too much.
Right.
And I always laugh a little bit because I'm like, this is almost like we're in the Mika Kiprusoff era time right now.
Yeah.
Every year is like, okay, Kipper's not going to play 70 games this year, and then he plays 72. It's just, I asked Wade Flaherty once, does he ever get tired? And he goes, does he look tired? I'm like, nope. And he's like, exactly. So I do think that Combs is going to get a couple of games on this trip. That's just my thought. And to your question, how much are they going to alleviate him before the tournament starts and then after? Because clearly he's the number one goaltender for the U.S. at this point. But how much is, and I'm trying to figure out how serious each country is going to take this tournament, because I don't know if Four Nations face-off champion is really going to be something that they really want to bring home with them. But it's the opportunity to play at a high level. So I'm curious how the Jets are going to balance this, because what they've done so far with the schedule being as hectic as it is, they've done great jobs with taking rest days, knocking off practice days when they don't really need to, recognizing when they do need to practice, which they did after the loss in Florida. That's kind of where I'm lying. I've kind of learned to trust where these guys go. They've done enough research over the years and knowing these players enough where they know what days they're going to play. And from my understanding, Wade Flaherty has Connor Hellebuck's schedule laid out pretty early of where he feels he's going to have to go. So
he knows when he has lunch. He knows when he goes
exactly.
to bed.
Yeah. They've kind of figured out something here. They're onto something, because he's doing rather well at his job. So, but it all comes down to, guys, is what is this going to look like in April? All this rest and whatever this all lies in, how much Eric Comrie plays, it just has to carry into it. But I've learned to trust these guys because I've talked to them enough times, and every time people have asked me, he's going to play 55 games here, I'm like, come on, it's going to be 60, 62 games. We just know this, and they've done a great job of finding the right backup goaltender who understands. Sorry, man, you're not getting 25 games. If you really want to be on the William N. Jennings trophy, it's not going to happen because you're not going to play enough to do it. So, but that's what they've figured out. They found those right guys to play that backup role and understand that Connor Hellebuck's getting in the role, sir. But I don't know. I'm still thinking he's 62 for sure, guys. And Combs will get 20, whatever that looks like. But Eric Comrie's playing twice in this trip, I would bet.
And let's Jamie Thomas not forget about Jason Kasdorf, who's plays an integral role as the practice goaltender occasionally when needed. But you know what, Jamie, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I find it fascinating, and you're in the room and you're around the guys all the time, is that, and I said this on the show a number of times, but I just find it so interesting. You can't tell if this team has won 8 games in a row or has lost 2 games. And I just think that the even keelness of this hockey team is significant. The mindset of this hockey team is so different from what, and again, we're not here to blow smoke and to laud praise on this Jets club, but I just find it fascinating to I think it's so different. And again, I've been around this team for 14 years.
Yeah.
But I just find it so different this year. and I'm curious about your opinion, but I find it so different to see that they don't get high from the wins. They don't get low from the losses. They're just even. And you can tell they're a team on a mission.
Yeah. Just had Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. They wrote a great long article. And I think the opening line was how impressive this team is, how unimpressed they are by what their start is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maturity. But it's also like lessons learned of okay, it's great what you did and it's fantastic. And it's been highly entertaining watching you guys the last couple of years, but what now? And I think they want to get these points out of the way. They want to take care of business. They want to get in the playoffs, but it's like, what shows us for you guys? Like there's 800 more to go here still for, like you guys are like, okay, this is show 20. I mean, we got this many more left. That's just pretty much how these guys are handling it. It's just like just another day at the office. And I remember talking to Sam Gagner his year here, and I'm like, when is the NHL season a grind? And he goes like November, which took me back. Like that surprised me. I thought it'd be, he's like November until March is a real grind. So I think they're recognizing what's ahead here. And sure, there's a break in February, but it's a grind when it starts getting cold and everything. And these road trips, they're coming home for 1, they're leaving for 5 or 6 and stuff like that. It's nuts the amount of and because of the Four Nations face-off, how compressed the schedule is. So I think they realize no matter how great they were tonight, they move on to the next one and they mean it. And we've heard it a lot already this year, but they truly mean it. And you can tell they do because they're already thinking about the next game after an impressive win, even like last night.
Jamie, you talk about how they're just focused on the next game, not getting too high, not getting too low. The Minnesota Wild, who they play on Monday, obviously we talked about heading into St. Paul, not an easy place. Big rivalry game. These two teams do not like each other. The Wild think that the Jets have taken Kirill Kaprizov out of the lineup with malicious hits for the last couple of years. And we all remember Ryan Hartman, his play on Cole Perfetti last year. So no love lost between these two teams. But do you think the Jets are maybe using the fact that the Minnesota Wild themselves have only lost 3 games in regulation as sort of continued motivation to keep playing at the elite level that they are, that they're not taking that foot off the gas because they look in the rearview mirror and the Minnesota Wild are right there, which just speaks to how incredible the Wild have been this year as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's what that also might be a factor in their even keel part is that they've been dominant, but Minnesota's still hanging behind there. Like you lose 2 games in a row. Oh man, is Minnesota caught up to us yet? And I mean the way they're playing right now, I don't think it's frustrating. I just think it's very sobering that no matter what you do here, there are good teams. That Western Conference in itself wouldn't the Jets play Edmonton right now? If they played the playoffs today, I think. So it's just, it doesn't really, you can win all these games, but you're not getting rewarded for it, guys. Like, Vegas. Oh, thank you so much. We have 112 points. Awesome. Connor McDavid. Super. Let's, we have home ice, but we have last change for 4 of the 7 games. There's not many other positives that come out of that.
Well,
so I think
that speaks to my complaint that the NHL bastardizes the regular season by not really giving a significant advantage for regular season performance.
At least they're not doing I'm not playing back-to-backs. Nobody does that in the NHL right now. So if
load management isn't a thing.
They have that on the NBA right now. So so the Minnesota game will be another litmus test for them because it's another level of physicality. Like Colorado, it's all about speed and not turn the puck over. Florida's same thing, but Florida's physical. But Minnesota is a true grinder where you're going to get hit a lot. It's not going to be fun. So that's the type of thing that they're preparing themselves for. So it's that's why Nashville. I feel it's important they play Nashville. Because you heard Scott on the other day, sometimes you play those teams where they don't like Pittsburgh, for instance, where there's not really that much fight. If you play Pittsburgh and then go into Minnesota, I don't know. I don't like the chances of that very much. But the fact they're playing Nashville first, and there's some physicality in this game, and there's some built-up hatred or contest or something like that, it's just it'll bode well for Monday. That's for sure.
Jamie, I wanted to ask you about Neil Pionk because obviously when you talk about players that have elevated their games, you could easily point to Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, Velarde. I mean, there's no shortage of guys who are having great seasons, but a big question mark, myself included, was the play of Neil Pionk and specifically
Mhm.
that second pair. I was less concerned about Dylan Samberg because I think he was ready to take that next step. But I think you would agree, Pionk had struggles last year on the ice. Not to say that every player doesn't have struggles, but we were used to seeing a certain level from Neil Pionk, and obviously one of his really good friends passed away, and that was tragic. And that shows us the human element of hockey. You can try to separate the two, but at the end of the day, these guys aren't robots. They're human beings and they have emotions, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it just seems like, again, last night, he plays, his usual 20 to 22 minutes a game, just solid. He didn't get himself on the scoreboard or anything like that. Obviously, he's had a great offensive start to the season, but to me, it's the way he's playing defensively, right? And I loved the hip check on Jesper Boquist on Florida. I realized that he got fined. I think it's ridiculous that he was fined, because to me that was just old school hockey.
One of the greatest hits ever. We
Exactly.
haven't seen like that. I love hip checks. Like
So do I. Every time, I forget who did he hip check earlier in the season. He had a big hip check on somebody at home earlier
against a significant player. It was with all due respect to Jesper Voquist, it was the hit check earlier in the year was against a name brand player that a household name. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it wasn't, it was somebody of prominence.
Yeah, it's that art, like that.
Connor Bedard.
There you go. Thank you, Dave. Yes. That's exactly right.
The young gun. You're right, Dave.
Yeah. Connor Bedard took a beating in that game, actually, in Winnipeg, when I think about it. Anyways, I love the hip check. If that's the whole thing, it's the other part of, was that hit on Nyes legal with White Cloud the other day? It's just like, you're gonna have your head down, man.
I thought that was a legal hit completely.
I thought it was too.
I had no problem with White Cloud.
It was a leaf, dude. That's why we all know why there's conversation about this. If you have your head down, you should pay the price. I don't care. Like, that's just, and that is a legal hit.
He went right through the body, right through the chest. It was textbook.
Exactly. And in with Pionk's hip check, that was on the thigh. That was not a knee hit. So that is where those hip checks are supposed to happen. Neil Pionk, and to what you said, Ezzy, is just like, it's about the human being. That was a hard. I talked to him last year. One of the things he said was, it wasn't so much the loss of the friend, which was huge and it was devastating. It's, how are the parents going to do it, and his wife. That was like, he was worried about them. So there's the human side that you're talking about. So I think again, this goes back to the people around the team all the time. You kind of figured he'd have a bounce back year. And I was talking with Dylan Samberg at a luncheon before the guys left for the trip. And it just said he knew he was going to bounce back this year. And it's great to see, because we all know there's always one defenseman that the fans like to target every year. This is like clockwork in fandom on every team ever. Doesn't matter if it's the Moose or the Jets. It's some guy that shouldn't be there, and this guy should be up there. And it's always a defenseman. I will write a book on it one day. It's just, that's what happens. So
forward by Johnny Oduya.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
I'd argue Tobias Enstrom, but sure.
Oh my gosh. Like this, seriously, we could all do it together, because it's just like, there's a pattern, there's a template to it. That's just what it is. So Neil Pionk is that guy.
Last time anybody asked us to write a book, the company went out of business about a month later, just for the record.
But at least we wrote a book and we can cross it off our list. So Pionk has been fantastic this year. And then yesterday, Pionk reminds me of Hulk Hogan. If you hit him, he just gets mad. You know, when Hulk used to get punch in the face and go like this. That reminds me of Pionk, because he gets a big smile on his face. So that you can't make Neil Pionk mad. It's not going to work in your favor. And he has a big smile on his face. He's enjoying the game again this year, and it's showing in his play, and it is benefiting the Jets big time, because that pairing of Samberg and Pionk has been tremendous this year.
Jamie, one of the guys who have had the benefit, and everybody really has. I mean, there hasn't been a need, in the early going of this season, when the Scheifele, Connor, Velarde line was at 5-on-5, wasn't scoring, was getting scored on a lot. People were like, oh, well, is it time to break them up? But the team was winning. So they had the latitude to keep them together. And then sure enough, they outscored their opponents 9-1 at 5-on-5. Another player, I think, who had has a longer leash after an injury last season was Rasmus Kupari. Mm-hmm. And we all wondered, what does this team see in Rasmus Kupari? We know the speed, but, the question mark was, about other elements of his game. And one of the things I thought was interesting a couple of weeks ago when Kevin Cheveldayoff was speaking with Frank Saravalli, he talked about how the team didn't play fast enough last year. how they didn't play a speed game. Of course, Tyler Toffoli and Sean Monahan aren't exactly going to add to a team being cheetah-like, if you will. But from my perspective, adding Rasmus Kupari and him having the opportunity kind of establish himself, be healthy. What have you seen from him this season? And do you think it kind of proves the point that Scott O'Neill had in sort of that faith he had in him this season?
Yeah, the one of the reason why they brought in Kupari is because of his speed, and he's another guy that didn't get any momentum because he got hurt, so we didn't really get a fair shake of what he brought. So the Jets, when the Jets don't play well, they play slow. We've heard this 1,000 times. The more guys that you have speed that can play the game, he's not a first-round pick for no reason, flat out. He has the abilities, but he's just. I think the confidence is there. Getting that first goal as a Jet right away at the beginning part of the season has to play a large role in everything, his confidence levels. But I think they found some good chemistry with Barron and Iafallo, and I think Kupari is reveling in that, and that's a big part of the reason why he's having success, because he feels comfortable where he is, much like Gabe Vilardi. Wasn't around the team enough. Now he's getting some time. And he's, they're trusting him in big situations. They're trusting him on the penalty kill here and there. That says everything. If you can put a guy in the penalty kill, a young player, that says a lot about how much they believe in you, because that's not just we got to give him some ice time, so we'll put him on the penalty kill. Said no coach ever. They're putting him on the penalty kill. They're putting him out for faceoffs. So I think his speed and everything plays a large role in that. But it's what he's doing with the ice time, guys. That's the important part. It's one thing to say he has the ability. It's that he's going out there and he's doing the job that's being asked of him, and that's why Rasmus Kupari is also having a good year here in Winnipeg.
The Winnipeg Jets first in the Central Division. Jamie Thomas first in the Fantasy Football League, tied for first at the very
I am, and that's why I came on late. I'm in first, so I'm just like I can show up when I want with my.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Coffee mug that my wife just handed me to do a little bit of emasculating on a Saturday morning.
It's a great mug. It's a great appearance on the program. Jamie, thanks for this, buddy. We'll do it again real soon. We'll catch up again.
Sorry for the technical issues. You can trust me next time. I figured it out.
There you go. Thanks, Jamie. See you later, buddy.
Thanks, Jamie.
There he goes. Jamie Thomas joining us this morning
Fur
on
Mom.
the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Fur Mom. It's nice to see that he's a fur mom. I didn't know that, but in any event,
as long as he's not a furry.
Well, the furry was out in full force in Pittsburgh last night, and of course, God bless the power of the internet. We now know who the furry was. Didn't
Dave do a story on the furries once?
That was the Dallas Furries.
Those are the Dallas Furries.
Right.
Yeah.
For the record, and as an aside, and I don't know why, it was funny. I was talking to someone on the IC Instagram, because I'm like, I'm not really sure why people are so inflamed by the concept of a furry. I really don't. But people got really mad. I posted it on our Instagram, and people were like, I don't want that person. They're not a Jets fan. I was like, really? You actually care enough about them wearing that costume? I just thought it was entertaining. But apparently people are very passionate about furries.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense to me either. But look, if you're going to cheer for your team, whatever you want to wear to cheer for your team, from my perspective, okay. No, there is unconfirmed reports.
It's not me.
That as he was the furry.
It does seem reasonable,
furry.
though.
He's just not the furry. That's the difference right there. We'll go to break. When we come back, Cole Perfetti. He's struggling. What do the Jets need to do to get him going as of late? Jesse Pierce at the bottom of the hour to talk about the Minnesota Wild as well. Saturday morning, Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. Jesse Pierce, who covers the Minnesota Wild, she's set to join us in about 5 to 8 minutes time, give or take. Well, the Winnipeg Jets hot streak has continued unabated. The same cannot be said for Cole Perfetti, who is goalless in his last 8 games for the Winnipeg Jets, tallying 3 assists in those 8 games. Struggles after a terrific start to the season for the young Jets winger. You know, from your perspective, when you guys are watching Cole Perfetti, I mean, he was noticeable last night in the sense that he took that interference penalty, which I thought was more incidental contact than a vicious pick. The officials thought differently. How do the Jets get Cole Perfetti going right now when everybody around him is still going pretty fast?
I don't know if it's the Jets needing to get Cole Perfetti going. I think Cole Perfetti's been fine. I mean, obviously he's not scoring any goals, but I mean, I would be more concerned if he wasn't getting opportunities, and he is getting opportunities shooting the puck. And I think that line is looking good. So I really am not that concerned. You know, you mentioned no goals in 8 games. I mean, that's a little bit alarming. I think, you know, you wouldn't expect him to go more than like 3 or 4 games, for example, without scoring a goal. But to me, Dave, I'm watching a line that is connected and they're doing a good job of finding each other on the ice, right? Like, you know, we just had the comment up. I think it was from Doug, if I'm not mistaken, about the speed. Like, look, Perfetti is not Nikolai Ehlers. He's not Kyle Connor. He's not Rasmus Kupari. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. Perfetti's brilliance, I think, is his ability to slow the game down, and it's his vision, right? And we've seen him find, whether it's Nemesnikov or Ehlers or a defenseman, if that's, you know, what the play requires, right? I think that's the strength of Cole Perfetti. It's his IQ, it's his vision. And sure, I mean, you want him to be a goal scorer as well. I think he's got 4 goals or 5 goals this year, right? So obviously you'd like him to have a few more maybe, but I really, Drew, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to ruin your segment here. All I'm saying is that I think Perfetti has been playing well. I mean, obviously, you know, you'd maybe look at that game, Dave, like the Florida shutout. I don't think anybody really played well for the Jets, to be honest with you. Nick Ehlers, I think, had 5 shots in that game. So that line was actually the Jets' best line. But I think you would be more concerned if Perfetti, this to me is not like last year. I think if Perfetti was, you know, you weren't noticing him on the ice and he wasn't making plays, like he's doing that. He's creating time and space for himself. He's finding his teammates. I think the goals will come.
Dave, let me put it to some stats over the last 8 games. So the traditional stats I just uttered for Cole Perfetti don't reflect very well upon him. But if you are a believer in the advanced stats, the last 8 games, he's second on the Jets in Corsi for percentage, 53.8%, and his expected goals over the last 8 games are 56.3%. So is that telling you that he's just in a bit of a a cold streak in terms of the traditional performance numbers, whereas he's actually impacting the game positively for the Winnipeg Jets in the fancy stats, if you will.
Well, I mean, I think with a lot of things, this Jets club has latitude. They have the luxury of being 17-3 on the season. So if Cole Perfetti isn't scoring, I'm with Ez. I'd be more concerned. Like, I understand what Doug's point is, and I don't think it's incorrect. But at the end of the day, you're never going to associate Cole Perfetti with speed. It's just not going to happen. Can he get marginally faster? I think he can. But is it going to be he's not going to be Nikolai Ehlers. He's not going to be Rasmus Kupari. That's not his game. He's a cerebral player. So for him, he needs to find time and space because he doesn't have that foot speed, because he doesn't have that ability to kind of create it for him. So he has to use his brain to create it, right, guys, as opposed to his legs. But I would be more concerned if he wasn't getting those opportunities. And you do see it. He's gotten chances. So, the line is still scoring. Vlad Domestikov is on pace for a career year, not historic, Drew, but a career year.
Hey, it wasn't me who said historic. It was you who said historic.
I know. I'm clarifying my words from yesterday because I didn't want you to call me on it again. But I like I said, I understand that the concern folks have, but it does seem to be nitpicking a little bit because you're sitting there going, he's already had some success, and you don't want to see him go goalless for like 23 games like he did last year. But at the same time, I just think he is getting. Look, I think it was a grade A chance yesterday's game, and Jari made some nice saves, or maybe it was the game prior against Florida. But against Florida. But to me, he's getting the chances, and I just think that it's not. They obviously think well of him because when Velarde was the goon Cal Connor was in the box and the Jets had the power play, they moved Perfetti up to PP1. So I just think that it's just one of those things that, I think it's worth talking about if it gets to like 12, 15 games. But I think again, his line mates are having success. He's having success and the team is having success. So I don't think it's something of significant concern right now.
Well, to your point about his line mates having success, that line, the Perfetti, Ehlers, Namestnikov line, is actually leading the Jets over the last 8 games. Those 3 players as individuals have the best possession numbers for the Jets over the last 8 games, which is in the midst of Perfetti's quote unquote struggles. So It goes to show you that there are sort of 2 sides to every coin, and it all depends on which lens you want to look at those coins through on this Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, and Ezra Ginsburg with you. We're thrilled to welcome to the program to talk about the Minnesota Wild. Jesse Pierce joins us on the show. Jesse, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things in beautiful Minnesota?
It's chilly here this morning, boys, which we've had a pretty decent fall for a change, so I really can't complain too much. But yeah, we were going to go cut down the Christmas tree today. I don't know if we're going to do that. It's cold. It's biting out there. But
hang on.
It's all right.
You cut down the Christmas tree? You don't go to a Christmas tree yard and pick it out?
No,
you cut it down yourself?
Oh yeah, we just chop. We're lumberjacks out here in Minnesota. We're getting in there, getting gritty. It's something different to do. It works those arm muscles and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I'm a little more than basic sometimes.
That I'm impressed by that. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start when it came down to chopping down a tree.
Jesse, don't mind Drew. He doesn't even rake his own leaves. He pays someone to do that.
Oh, boy. Actually, must be nice. Drew.
That is not the case. In fact, I enjoy yard work, and I do my own leaves, and I do my own driveway with the shoveling. So while I am going for a manicure in about 4 hours time, I still do my own yard work. Thank you very much. Nonetheless, we digress as we often do on this show. Jesse, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We have to talk. I mean, this is going to be a hell of a matchup come Monday night. And we were sort of in the prelude to this and talking about these Winnipeg Jets. I don't think the Minnesota Wild are getting their just desserts for how great they've been to start this year, just because the Jets have got those 17 wins. Wild and the Jets have the same number of regulation losses. It's just that those 3 games that the Wild have lost in extra time, you put those in the other column, and the Jets and the Wild are basically neck and neck or even closer than they currently are.
Yeah, no, Minnesota's playing tremendous, which was imperative. You look at last year's start and how much that put them behind the eight ball. Minnesota was able to kind of gather things toward the end of the year. Obviously, injuries bouted them throughout the course of the season. But this year, from day one, Bill Guerin at training camp said, you need to have a better start. You need to have a good start. And Minnesota's not only having a good start, they're having a tremendous start. As I said, suffice to say, Winnipeg just a little bit better. Congrats to you guys. You're doing all right. But it's not just the fact that they're getting these wins. They're doing it in different variations. They're doing it in dominating fashion. You look at games against the Florida Panthers, or you look at games against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but they're also doing it in close mannerisms. They're coming back from behind against the Edmonton Oilers the other night. I think that's what's giving a lot of promise to this team, is that they're winning in different situations. They're winning in different degrees, and they're not giving up. They're battling from the beginning until the end and having really strong third periods, which I think is helping in their success in the long run.
So, Jesse, obviously we have to talk about Kirill Kaprizov. Big surprise there. I'm not sure if you've talked about him at all this year. Obviously, I'm joking, but how concerned were Wild fans after that knee-on-knee collision the other night against the Edmonton Oilers? Because there must have been some fans thinking like, oh no, please don't be injured.
And how was that going to become Logan Stanley's fault? That's the real question I want.
They'll find a way. Ryan Hartman will take it up with somebody, I'm sure, on Monday. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I think I had a lot of expletives that were on my Twitter account and on my various social media channels because it was. I mean, he is off to an incredible year. You think the Minnesota Wild are good. It's because of Kirill Kaprizov and a lot of supporting members as well. But Kirill in that Hart conversation, finally getting the recognition that I think everybody here in Minnesota knew. We knew he was special. You knew he was a superstar. And that doesn't happen in Minnesota Wild lore, right? Marian Gaborik is the closest thing we've ever had to a superstar, and Kirill Kaprizov is beyond that. But yeah, that hit to his knee where it looked like he was in quite a bit of pain. Terrifying, because you don't want to see a guy like that go down. You don't know what that means for the future of this season, let alone the future of his career. But he's a beast. I mean, that's what makes Kirill so special. It's not only his elite talent, the way he skates, his edge work, the way he passes, the way he creates and generates offense, and the way he scores naturally, but it's also the way he wins those battles. He gets in those dirty areas. He gets in there and uses his physicality as well. So to see him go down, you knew it was concerning. For him to come back, huge. Now, will he play tonight in Calgary? That's TBD, right? I'm not quite sure what that looks like. It's probably not terrible for him to sit out and rest if he needs, but Minnesota definitely avoiding a serious injury to Kirill is going to be huge, especially come Monday night when the Jets are in town.
Jesse, I have to ask you about old friend Declan Chisholm and how he has continued to solidify himself as an everyday NHLer. Jets fans love to lament the prospects that get away, and Declan Chisholm is definitely one. We knew how good his skating was, but how has he transitioned to becoming like an everyday NHLer with the Minnesota Wild?
Yeah, currently he's kind of in that seventh defenseman rotation with John Merrill, which I think works out. Although you're seeing Declan get a little bit more looks, a little bit more time because of his power play capability. Minnesota, not too great on the power play as of this season so far, at just 19.6% efficiency. We don't love that. But Declan getting a chance on that top power play unit, bumping Brock Faber down even. I think Chisholm's been great. I think Wild fans have really taken him. As you'd mentioned, the skating, it's beautiful. You see Jonas Brodin out there, and Declan Chisholm is very much on that par. And that's always been Broads' big mark on himself. So it was a great waiver pickup. Sorry, Winnipeg, that you guys missed out on that. I'm curious to see, how that unfolds in the future. Is there room? Because there's a lot of really strong defensive prospects for the Minnesota Wild too. So as far as how Chisholm really starts to assert himself, that'll begin this year and hopefully a long future for him here in Minnesota.
Jesse Pierce, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning, the Jets and the Wild coming up on Monday, and what ought to be a great tilt between these two Central Division rivals, featuring two of the best goaltenders. We presume it's going to be two of the best goaltenders currently operating in the NHL. Connor Hellebuyck likely to be the Jets starter, barring something unforeseen. Philip Gustafsson has been incredible for the Wild this year. Is this a surprise that he's been at this level of success so far? I mean, we know that, he has had some flashes, he's had some stints of success, but to be where he is so far this year with the .926 save percentage and the 2.07 goals against average, did anybody see that level of success coming?
An NHL leading goals against average, mind you. Just want to put that out there. Let everybody know Philip Gustafsson, number one in the world. No, I think it's a little surprising. You saw 2 years ago those flashes and those stints, as you'd mentioned, of Philip Gustafsson looking like a very strong goaltender. He was one that pushed for that starting goaltending position. We've got an audience,
We
a
got-
live
we have-
audience here. Please.
we
I
have
don't
was like,
interrupt
Jesse,
us.
I was like, do you have a whiteboard? And Drew's got his kids in the show now.
Yeah,
What's going on?
we're having a good time. Saturdays mornings, it's family time a little bit, but they love listening to me talk hockey because they think it's great. They think I'm
Well,
yelling at hockey players
Jesse,
constantly.
last weekend, my
Perfect
son
timing,
kicked
of
a-
course.
kicked a
We had a
soccer
Harry-
ball and knocked my coffee over.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a Harry
beautiful.
Potter related emergency on this end of things. so-
That'll happen. Yeah, mine
Yeah.
is just probably complaining about how cold it is, but still wanting to ride his bike or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. No, but Philip Gustafson 2 years ago, again, as I was saying, played great. I mean, he had the opportunity, he took it. It was fantastic. So you were looking to him last year to be that guy again, and he didn't show up. Unfortunately, it was just a tough year. There was a little bit of injury for him as well that I think didn't help his case, but also he came into camp out of shape. He just wasn't as zoned in and as focused. And that was something Bill Guerin very admittedly said at the end of this year is Phil Gustafson needs to come to camp in shape. He needs to get serious. He needs to be a starting goaltender because as much love and as much as we love Marc-Andre Fleury, it wasn't going to be necessarily a 50-50 for him. Even on this year, I think you wanted Philip Gustafson to take that lion's share last year, and he didn't do it. And so this year it was his for the taking again, and he's stepped up. It's been incredible. It's great to see Philip Gustafson really save a lot of these games or be the reason that the Minnesota Wild are in some of these close games. You look at that Dallas Stars game, 2-1. Philip Gustafson is the reason it stayed at 2-1. So it's great. It's incredible. It's good for the future too, because he is signed to that contract for another 2 years. And with Jesper Valstad, Minnesota Wild's top goalie prospect, it looks like it'll be a really strong tandem then moving into the future as well.
Jesse, you mentioned players stepping up, and a guy that I've always followed on the Minnesota Wild because he went one spot. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. My kids are banging upstairs. It really is kids' time here with all of our all of our respective kids participating on the show. But Marco Rossi is a guy that I have to ask you about because a lot of Jets fans thought that he might go to the Jets at 10th overall. They were hoping he might go to the Jets at 10th overall. Luckily, they got a pretty good player in Cole Perfetti, who we were just talking about. He's struggling a little bit to score goals. He hasn't scored in 8 games. Still playing well, though, Jesse. But what have you seen out of Marco Rossi in his sophomore year? Because obviously, last year, 21 goals, 40 points, his first full year in the NHL, his quote unquote, coming out party breakout year. What have you seen from him? Because every time I watch him play, I mean, there's a reason why the Wild took him at 9th overall. The skill is abundant.
Exactly. And he's finally formulated into that first round pick for the Minnesota Wild. He formulated into that number 9th selection. It's been a journey for Marco Rossi. He had some health issues following COVID that really derailed his journey into the NHL. It didn't allow him to play hockey like he had wanted to. So it took a while for him to get that hockey body back, and he is back in full force, if not 150%. You saw it last year. There was a lot of conversation about Brock Faber being Calder contender and rookie of the year. And obviously Brock Faber is a tremendous defenseman and will be in the NHL for a long time. But Marco Rossi was right there a little bit in that conversation, especially as a rookie for the Minnesota Wild, because last year, as you said, as he was his coming out party, everybody started to take notice, and he's followed that up with a really good sophomore campaign. I think the only issue Marco's having right now is finding that groove because of the constant movement he has on his line. Sometimes you'll find him on the top line between Matt Zuccarello, who's obviously not in the lineup right now, and Kirill. Other times you're finding him down on the third line with Yakov Trenin and Marcus Foligno. So I think there's a little bit of that movement that is hard for him to find some consistency, but at the same pace, that's also a good sign that Marco Rossi is trusted in those different situations and he's giving those opportunities in different situations. It's going to be another strong output for Marco. I think 2 nights ago, we really saw that, and you're starting to see it more and more consistently. But yeah, he's been a great player. It's nice to see that finally come around because he put the work in. He stayed in Minnesota during the offseason to really dedicate himself to becoming the player that Minnesota Wild wanted him to be. And he's certainly achieving that so far.
Well, Jesse, we have to ask you about Marc-Andre Fleury and, the swan song of his career coming to an end at the end of this. What's it like right now around him, and what's, the vibe with him? He's obviously having a pretty good season for Minnesota as well. But, just in terms of how is that going? Is there a lot of every time he goes into an arena, is there a lot of, I know obviously they were in Pittsburgh and they made a big thing of it, but what's it like right now with him, who's such a beloved player in the NHL?
It's been such a privilege to cover him. I've never been so excited to have a player on the Minnesota Wild. Yes, you have your superstars come and go, but Marc-Andre Fleury is not only the legendary first ballot Hall of Famer that we all know him to be, he is a tremendous human being. He never turns down an interview or an autograph. constantly has that smile. He's a competitor too. And you can just see why so many teammates love him and why this league loves him as much as he does. There's that adoration that follows him everywhere he goes, and it's so deserving because he's a great human. His kids, his family, I mean, the whole gambit. He hates it, however. He hates all of the adoration. He doesn't like the spectacle being made. He dreaded kind of going into Pittsburgh for it. Montreal, I think, will be the next big one when he goes to Montreal and they have that whole fanfare. It's something that he is very humbled by. He appreciates it. He gets it, right? But it's also why I think he had announced it last year that this will be my final year, so we can try to get all this out of the way. We can move on and we can play. I think it's a little bit difficult for him. We actually had him on my Bar Down Beauties podcast this past week, and he's not playing, as I mentioned. It's Philip Gustafson's net, and Marc-Andre steps in, and I asked how he's handling that, knowing it is his final year, more than 99% sure. Of course, there's always that 1%, but he said it's tough. He's like, it's no fun, obviously, sitting on the bench, but he gets it. He wants his team to win. Again, that's what makes him a great teammate, right? He's there to help his team win, and he's keeping the spirits up in the locker room. He's having a good time with the guys, and he's having fun watching the team be successful and win. I know he'll get his starts here and there. They're obviously going to try to get him some games, and he'll get in the important ones as well. But yeah, it's tremendous. I can't help but just adore him. He's a great human being and a pretty good hockey player.
Drew, you're muted.
I can almost read lips well, just not quite that well.
Sorry,
That's a fine, Drew.
I rarely mute my mic, but my daughter came down, and so I muted her, and then I forgot.
You should mute yourself more often, Drew.
Yeah,
we're okay with it.
Yeah, everybody's on board with me muting myself more often. I see that now. Jesse, Matt Zuccarello out of the lineup after suffering really one of those horrible injuries that make people cringe, no matter what team you support. He had such a great start to the year for the Wild. I mean, I believe he was just under a point a game, 14 points in 16 games when he suffered the injury. A veteran guy, who's really sort of, found a nice home in Minnesota for all these years after coming over from the Rangers. How significant of a loss has it been to the Wild? And really, Zuccarello himself, the recovery timeline and the ability to come back from such a dramatic injury.
I mean, I gave birth to 3 kids, so I feel a little bit of it, but I do. It's unfortunate.
It's about as close for a man, as the pain of it.
Doesn't sound pleasant. That's for sure. No, I mean, it's crazy to me how much of the success Minnesota has managed to squeeze out of Matt Zuccarello, because he is on the elder side of his career, right? He's on that veteran side. And a lot of that is Kirill Kaprizov. They have this weird, crazy chemistry. You can't talk about Mats without Kirill. You can't talk about Kirill without Mats, although you can a little bit. But no, I mean, losing Zuki hurts, but I think you look at that Edmonton game, for instance, most recently, and the way the depth is finally showing. I think that's what gets me most excited about this Minnesota Wild team is, sure, you've got your Matt Boldy, you've got your Kirill Kaprizov, you've got Philip Gustafson and Brock Faber, some of those big keys, but the other cogs are also working. Freddie Gaudreau has a 2-goal night. Marcus Foligno has a strong night. Yakov Trenin, who is a player for me I need to see more from, is doing well. Ryan Hartman. So in the absence of Matt Zuccarello being out, there are 3 players ready to step up and kind of help take on that role and add to that Wild depth. And it certainly juggles the lines a little bit. It juggles who can work with Kirill, because Mats and Kirill just have that uncanny hockey sense together, right? I mean, that's what makes that work. So it's hard to find players that can match that. And I think Matt Boldy's doing a decent job, certainly, of it. It's going to hurt for a little bit, but I think Minnesota so far is navigating the waters. Again, that big test coming Monday night when Winnipeg's in town to see just how well the navigation truly is going without Zuki.
Okay, so Jesse, I actually was going to ask you about Matt Boldy, but I have to ask you about something much more important. Yeah, I know that you appear regularly on Winnipeg Sports Talk. They were talking about this yesterday. What is going on here with the Minnesota Wild having a whiteout on November 30th against the Nashville Predators? What is going on here? They're stealing the Jets gimmick.
We like to steal people's things sometimes. I've heard Seattle got all mad because we're throwing walleyes as our 3 stars And I guess Seattle said that only they're allowed to throw fish toward the end of the night for their 3 stars. So we're just stealing gimmicks all
They
around.
stole that from Detroit.
Yeah, right. I mean, truly, that's where it all began. Or even
I mean,
Nashville had it before
octopus.
Seattle did. Yeah, like it's.
I just,
technically-
Jesse, I just don't understand why they wouldn't make the white. If they were going to do a
But we
whiteout
have-
game, why wouldn't you do it against the Jets on Monday?
I think there's a different promo going on against the Jets too.
Okay.
There's so many, right? There's just so many. I personally, the only thing I'm upset about next week, I love the Winnipeg after American Thanksgiving game. Like I
Yes.
like having Winnipeg there on that Friday. There's something about it. It's a Black Friday sale. I still one of my favorite games when Minnesota pots 7 or 8 goals on the Jets there in St. Paul. I love it. I mean, Chicago will bring its own heat, but Chicago, as we all know, is kind of down.
They
and
should make
out.
that a traditional year
Yes.
in, year out game. Then
right.
Winnipeggers flock to Minnesota anyways, and then
Yes.
piggyback it with a Vikings game. Boom,
Mm.
done. You've sold out everything immediately.
And we can make it all white out. Everybody could be happy about a white out in that. There you go. It
Except
could
for those
it
driving
could be
down.
win.
You don't want to white out when you're driving down.
I
I'm
mean,
not-
this is true.
Yeah, I'm not personally upset about it. I just think it's hilarious. And Huss and Remus were going off on it yesterday on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's just so funny because the Minnesota Wild aren't apologizing. Like, it's not like they're trying to, like, they
No.
didn't call it something else. Like, they literally called it the whiteout, something that's been going on in Winnipeg since, what, the 1990s?
No, way
But-
earlier than that.
Yeah,
Really?
the 80s.
See,
Yeah,
and
it was
I,
the
oh,
80s.
there you
There you
go.
go, 80s.
I see. I would have never even known. I just figured they liked the color, and I don't know, went with it. Snow. We get snow here too sometimes.
True, true.
It
You know,
all
Jesse, I got to ask you about Zach Bogosian. I mean, you know, he looked like his career might have been done, and somehow he's resuscitated it, and he's played 19 games for the Minnesota Wild. So, how has the former Winnipeg Jet kind of found new life in Minnesota?
Yeah, Bogo brings that size that Minnesota so desperately needs, especially on the blue line. I mean, they are smaller. We talk about Jared Spurgeon. We can talk about, I mean, Bogosian brings that heftiness, and he pairs really well with Declan Chisholm when that seems to be working out tremendously. Yeah, and I think he just brings grittiness too. You're looking at some very talented Minnesota Wild players finally for a change, but you have Bogo bringing that grit and that veteran status, as you had mentioned too. I mean, I think that's really also the other key to success. There's so much made about locker room culture, and that's been Bill Guerin's big stamp on this organization since he came around. It's the reason for the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter buyouts was creating a good culture, and Bogo's a huge part of that. He's bringing in guys that have the experience of winning a Stanley Cup, that have this tenure of being a tenacious player, and Zach Bogosian fits that mold. So there's a reason that Bill Guerin brought him in, and there's a reason then that Zach Bogosian's refinding some success, or Matt Zuccarello too, right? Is because I think behind the scenes, the team itself works so well collectively that they each bring their role.
Jesse, last one for you. The PWHL season is getting underway coming up in the next couple of weeks. The Minnesota franchise going to, of course, raise the banner, but they weren't without controversy this offseason after winning the championship. Is that water under the bridge, or do you think that's going to quickly sort of bubble up depending on how the season goes for the Minnesota franchise?
It was so interesting, right? Obviously, the controversy is you fire your GM, who has not only just won you the inaugural championship, but is a local legend here. Natalie Darwitz recently inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, in addition to. But, you know, the Minnesota Frost, they have their name now, which I keep forgetting to say. I keep saying PWHL Minnesota because all last year, that's what I was focused on. But the Minnesota Frost, yes, December 1st is their opener. I actually asked the organization about that. I asked their new GM, Melissa Caruso, who comes to the Frost from the American Hockey League. And she said, you know, we're just looking to turn the page. I think the biggest thing is trying to get the fan base back on board because, as I mentioned, Natalie, a local legend here, and she's done everything for the girls and women's game, and she's achieved so much. So I think the fans were really distraught, not only because of their connection to her, but the lack of transparency from the league. We still don't really have answers as to what went on, aside from, you know, the coach and GM didn't get along. Now, in any other circumstance, the GM is not the one going out the door, right? You're looking, Bill Guerin's not getting fired after winning a Stanley Cup if John Hines doesn't like him. So that's what makes it really, really crazy. But I asked Kendall Coyne, her name was kind of thrust into the controversy as a big reason. And Kendall said that she felt, and I quote, it was a false narrative, that she had nothing to do with it. It was not a decision made by her or anybody within the Minnesota organization. It was a league decision. So that's the storyline she's sticking with. For me, from a reporting standpoint, and even from wanting to see this league and this obviously team find success, I'm going to just move past it. I don't think you can dwell on the past. Unfortunately, we'll never know the truth because there's always her side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? Still an unfortunate situation. I adore Natalie. I've known her for years. She's fantastic. She is consulting with the Minnesota Wild, so she's kind of finding a place back in hockey as she sees fit. I just hope that the franchise itself can find success and the fan base can move forward. That's going to be the big question. And raising the banner is a good start. It reminds you of the good memories. And, you know, I hope they pay homage in some sort to Natalie for what she had created, because again, that's her banner as much as it is the team's too. So I'm excited for year 2 in general. And hopefully the league can be a little bit better in the way they communicate and make decisions, because I think that's the thing that people might not see. PWHL operates differently than the NHL because it is league owned. It's not franchises. So you don't have specific owners. So having the league run everything a little bit different. I don't know if I like it, but here we are, year 2. We'll see how it changes.
Jesse, speaking of the banner there, you've got the Vikings pennant. Drew is a huge Vikings fan. How bad did they beat down the Bears on Sunday?
Oh, I hope bad, but they're in a little bit of a weird place right now.
They always struggle in Chicago.
Come on, Drew. Where's your optimism?
Exactly.
My optimism is from years of being a Vikings fan. It's shattered. There's never any reason to be that optimistic. This is the third of 3 games in a row on the road that they should win, but different story altogether whether or not they will win. Sorry, I had that question myself.
If they go all Detroit and Jacksonville on Chicago, that would be incredible, right? Like run up 52, go for it. But again, I've fallen off of my high horse on there. I was like, the Vikings, maybe Sam Darnold is the best quarterback. Please, like
they're still doing pretty well though, right? Aren't they?
It's funny because I think
they're great.
Their record is good, and here in Minnesota, I think we were all. I know I certainly was. I thought they'd maybe win 7 all year, right? Like I just didn't have that much faith. This was not supposed to be their year. And then they go and overexceed expectations and win the front half of their season, which was arguably much tougher. So everybody's all on board. This is what happens as being a Vikings fan, right? Or a Minnesota sports fan. They get you up here just because they want to knock you all the way down. And the past couple games, that's what it's felt like. It's like, yep, here we are back again, wondering what's going on.
But they pulled them out. That's the important part. They weren't pretty.
Yes.
They weren't pretty victories, but they were victories nonetheless.
Right.
And we'll hope that like I said, I don't think Jets fans and Wild fans are ever going to come together, but there's plenty of Vikings fans here in Winnipeg and often make the trip down. So there's that we can find some common ground on moving forward. Jesse Pierce, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Great insight, as always, into the Minnesota Wild and the Minnesota Frost. Always appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Always. Thanks, boys. We'll see you Monday.
There you go. It's going to be a good one. Thanks, Jesse. Take care.
Jesse.
There she goes, Jesse Pierce. Great appearance this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We take our final break and we come back with some Moose news, some prospect news, and wrap up this morning's show, getting you set for tonight between the Jets and the Predators. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, rolls on. 5 minutes before the top of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Reminder, the post-game show, 8:40, 8:45, right around there tonight, talking about the Jets and the Predators. So be sure to join us back here again for that. It's been an incredibly busy last 24 hours or thereabouts with regard to the Winnipeg Jets and with regard to us at Illegal Curve. Confirmation from Nashville, Fedor Svechkov will make his NHL debut tonight for the Predators. Luke Evangelista is also back in the lineup. Juuso Parssinen and Philip Tomasino out of the lineup for the Nashville Predators as they look to find the winning lineup against the Winnipeg Jets on the back-to-back for the Jets after their victory last night in Pittsburgh. So time will tell what happens with that, but we'll bring you all the coverage later tonight on the Illegal Curve post-game show. The Moose in action later this afternoon against the Chicago Wolves, looking to avenge the 5-0 defeat on Thursday. Did I get that right? Wednesday?
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Sorry, I was a little delayed there, Dave. Sorry about that. I heard enough of Drew.
Yeah, the Moose are back in action after their Thursday morning defeat to the Wolves, and so they'll look to get some revenge and have a little bit of a better effort. That goes at 2:00 this afternoon. I will be there, as will some folks who are sitting in the IC Zone. We'll have tickets to give away. Drew gave away tickets last night.
Gave away tickets last
Drew
night.
was, took over the Manuk Moose Minute, which we weren't really planning on having, but he was giving away 4 tickets to the game. So we gave away 8 total tickets for today's game. We'll have more tickets. The Moose are in town for 6 straight, 4 more after today's game, and we'll have tickets for those games as well, which we'll give away later in the week. As your boy Bruce was at BP, with big thanks to the folks who came out to support us last night. But yeah, the Moose are back in action, 2:00 puck drop. We expect a bounce back game from the Manitoba Moose. And I'll just, I did a little bit of prospect talk yesterday, but just for the folks who weren't on the broadcast, the 2024 6th rounder Kieran Walton is having a very good season for Sudbury. He leads the team in points with 30. He had 2 goals and assists last night. Really excelling this season for the Wolves. And I think if I recall correctly, his points per game is up from 0.66 to 1.43. So he's been a nice little find, and of course it's early in the season. And of course, Kevin He, the 2024 4th rounder, he had a goal and assist for Niagara. They lost, I believe, in a shootout, but he's got the 3rd most goals in the OHL. So he is also having a very good season. He's up from 0.83 points per game last year to 1.55. He's got 31 points, and he and Walton are best friends. So it's kind of coincidental. They're both Jets prospects. Marcus Lopinen, 3 assists for Victoria yesterday. He's having himself a nice first season. Of course, wasn't supposed to be in Finland this year, came over, and he's playing in the WHL. And then Colby Barlow had a two assist game. He's slowly, he's had a real kind of precipitous drop from last year at his numbers, but he's had 10 points in his last 10 games. So starting to produce a little bit more, but he's had, we can mention the positives, but his numbers have dropped from 1.16 points per game last year to 0.65. So Colby Barlow has had a bit of a drop in production this year from, obviously there was some uncertainty with Owen Sound, went to Oshawa and hasn't quite rebounded. And again, like I said, a really tough start, didn't have any goals or really any points in the first 10. He's produced a little bit more in his last 10. So things are going a little bit better for him now, and Oshawa's still a good team, so he'll have some chances. But guys will be more in action. We've got Brandon Yeager or Yager, as we're still trying to figure out which it is, but either way, he'll be in action with Moose Jaw tonight.
And one more prospect update. Jets first rounder Alphonse Fraze has 5 points in
second rounder
games for Bjorklöven.
Second round.
Good job, Ezzy. Now way to bring that to the table. Dave, any timeline on Fabian Wagner joining the Moose?
Well, he joined. He was at practice, and obviously someone didn't read my practice report on Wednesday, Ezzy. But yeah, Fabian Wagner is there. He's
playing games for the Moose.
No, I know. I'm just joking, Drew. But yeah, he is. He was just kind of getting. Mark Morrison talked about him after practice, and he just said he's just getting him acclimatized. So he was skating with Henry Nikkinen and Daniel Torgerson, who are obviously both Jets prospects. And yeah, we'll see. I don't know if he's going to get into a game. He might be in today. I wasn't at practice yesterday, so I'm not entirely certain. And one other guy I should mention, I don't want to leave him out because Joe from Winnipeg will be upset if I do. Dominic DiVincentis, now 2 wins in his playing for Norfolk in the ECHL. Had a nice debut the other night, and he picked up another win, I believe, last night. So beating the Reading Royals.
There you go. That's the prospect report. That's the Moose report. That's the show for this Saturday morning. Big thanks to Jamie Thomas. Big thanks to Jesse Pierce for joining us on the broadcast. In case you missed either of those 2 interviews, the podcast will be up very shortly on all your usual suspects in the immediate replay available on the YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to smash the like button. Be sure to leave us feedback on YouTube, on the podcast, on Apple, iTunes, on Spotify, everywhere.
The contest, Drew. The contest.
There you go. Exactly right. Make sure you head to our Instagram page and our Facebook page. We're giving away 4 tickets in conjunction with our friends at Play Now. Get there to our Instagram and our Facebook. Answer the very difficult trivia question. You'll be entered into a draw to win 4 tickets to the Jets and the Habs coming up in 3 weeks' time on the 14th of December, Saturday night in downtown Winnipeg. That's an exciting giveaway, so be sure you head there shortly after this. Be sure to be back tonight for the Illegal Curve post-game show after the Jets and the Predators. We're going to be covering everything that happens right around 8:40, 8:45. So be sure to be back here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you'll get alerted and you won't miss a minute of Illegal Curve. Big thanks to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. Of course, Play Now, they're the title sponsor of these programs. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, they have their Black Friday special launching this coming weekend. It starts actually, I believe, tomorrow. Buy a $100 gift card, get 8 free tickets to a show at Rumors. Check that out, rumorscomedyclub.com. Our friends at Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and Seagram support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Thanks to all of you for joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll be back later tonight. Be sure to join us then. Until then, have a great rest of your Saturday. Whatever you do it safe. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.